Okay. Thanks, everyone, and welcome to the June 5th, 2023 regular meeting of council. And Judy, if we could go ahead and convene and call the roll.
Indeed. Sorry about the sound there. Couch.
I'm here.
McQueen. Here. DeVore Leonard.
Here.
We are expecting Carmen Brown. We are not expecting Kevin Stokes, who is out of town on family business. We also have present village manager Jose Salmeron, solicitor Amy Blankenship, planning and zoning administrator Denise Swinger, finance director Amy Kemper, and public works director Johnny Burns.
Okay. So I think that puts us into announcements, and I know, Josue, you have a few.
Yes, I have a few. You probably see new faces in the room. We have two new staff members joining us today on camera, or manning the camera and the broadcasting is Ben Gwenther, who's our new station manager. So you'll be seeing a lot of Ben on these days. Ben comes with extensive experience in media production, works for two other TV station production units. So we're glad to have Ben.
Oh, wow. Welcome, Ben.
Yes. Also joining us today is Meg Leatherman, our incoming planning and zoning administrator. We're really excited to have Meg join us. She's coming from city of Austria, Oregon. She comes with extensive experience in development, economic development and community development. So we're really excited to have Meg be part of our team.
And I do love Astoria, so yes, welcome. All right.
Got a couple other announcements. You know, it's going to be a busy month for us. Included in the manager report, we're excited to announce that we are recipients of water meter replacement grants from OPWC. So that's really exciting. I think council's been hearing about this for over 5 years, and finally we got this. So I want to thank the team, our engineering team, Johnny Burns and the team, for putting all the effort and doing all the work to ensuring that we were competitive in this round and ultimately secured a grant to replace all water meters in the village. So that's a big deal. We've got street fair coming up, so residents, it's going to be a little busy this weekend, a little more than previous weekend, so please plan ahead. And we're all hands on deck this coming weekend. And the month is going to be very busy. We kicked off the activities with Street Fair, then it's Juneteenth, Pride, and then 4th of July activities. So busy month ahead of us.
All right. Appreciate that. I guess I also want to reiterate that we had already planned for the matching piece of the water meters grant. So that was something we had already been proactive about. And my understanding is that also sets us up ultimately for citizens to have the ability to check their water usage remotely. And I know that's kind of a part of the progression that we're looking at for that move. So, Gavin, were you gonna? Okay, I saw you kind of lean forward. So I want to say, related to Street Fair, we still have a need for volunteers for bike parking, which there are 2 shifts, 11 to 1 and 1 to 3. Remember, bike parking is one of the things we love to encourage so that we have less people driving into town. And so Gary Zaremski will love you if you help with bike parking, and I'm sure you can make it incentivize that. But be great to get a few more spots on that.
Really quickly, where does the bike parking take place?
It is actually right in front of, I guess we'll still set it up where we usually do, which is right outside of the Bryan Center.
Okay.
So right by the Wheeling Gaunt area.
All right.
Yeah. And so pretty easy. People come in, they check in their bikes, you give them a tag, and yeah, so yeah. Which reminds me, I was really excited to see the Wheeling Gaunt Park Committee out there beautifying that space in anticipation, I think, for Street Fair as well as for Juneteenth, and so we appreciate those volunteer efforts. Few other things, since of course I always have things. Oh, so by the way, it didn't make it into the packet, but tomorrow is a Poor Air Quality Event Day. And so this is a good time to talk about. Miami Valley Regional Planning highlights this all the time. Generally in the summer, try to gas up, mow, do whatever you do in the evening, because when you do it during the day, you just contribute to the poor air quality. But they did put out a notice just like 2 hours before this meeting that tomorrow is going to be not a great day for a lot of people that have breathing challenges. I wanted to mention our next two meetings, and just as far as like clarifying, since Juneteenth is a public holiday and one that we recognize in Yellow Springs, our next meeting will be June 20th. And then I guess since July 4th is on a Tuesday, we will have our meeting on July 3rd, right? Okay, so feels kind of weird to have a Monday meeting around July 4th, but we will have our meeting on July 3rd. Juneteenth is being celebrated on June 17th. Lots of promotion about that. I also wanted to mention that I'm going to save these other things for later. But I just want to give a heads up, Josue, when we get to the manager's report, maybe you can talk about people wanting to plant bamboo in the village and how that's probably not a great idea.
Yes. We have a firsthand account here in the room that could also chime in.
Yeah, okay. So we'll save that for later. Okay, any other announcements? Okay. If not, then we've got one item on the consent agenda, which are our minutes from the last meeting. And I'll move those onto the table. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then we're going to review the agenda. There are a few things. I know we have something on the table that we'd like to add, which is, I think, Resolution 2023-46. Judy, did you say you wanted to?
That's correct, and then I know that Denise has some things she'd
Okay,
like to.
but I just saw you said you were going to jump in. Were you going to say something about like?
That was for the petitions and communications.
Oh, okay. So 2023-46 is, what are we doing there? Why are we adding
This
this?
is authorizing the village manager to enter into any necessary memoranda of understanding with law enforcement agencies for mutual aid. This is to be able to cover the large crowds at street fair.
Okay, okay. So we'd like to add that, and then, yes, and so then we have a couple items. Denise, do you want to come up and explain what we're, yeah.
We're requesting to withdraw ordinance 2023-23 for now, because we just need to do a little bit more research. And I've got a call into NIC, our contracted building department, and they indicated that they, depending on the use, changes what the requirements are going to be. So they're going to work on that for us so that we can add that into the code at the same time that we make this change.
Great.
So
Great.
we just don't want to do one too ahead of the other.
Okay.
The other thing is we also want to pull the 2 PUDs for tonight because there's some legal things that Amy needs to finalize. We just need to get ready for. So we'll bring it back on the 20th.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any questions? All right. Anything else about the agenda? All right. Thanks, Denise. So then I guess we will move into, Judy, if you could walk us through petitions and communications.
Yes, we have a letter from John Hempfling who is addressing some concerns that he had with ordinance 2323, which of course has now been withdrawn. So he can bring that back when that comes back. Greene County Public Health Department has actually a very cool thing happening with Safe Trade event in Fairborn, where they are having various events, barbecue and sort of family get-together events where they will also do testing for various things. They will do needle exchanges. It's a pretty neat thing that's in your packet. And then we are super fortunate here in the state of Ohio to have the highest incidence in the country of encephalitis caused by mosquitoes. So just put on your mosquito goo and be careful, because we are just that lucky. And then Mark Heise wrote a very lovely letter appreciating council support for street fair activities and explaining a little further the benefits of some of those activities.
And these are those new bike guides, which we have at the Village Building right now, that are really awesome. So thanks for procuring those. Okay, so then I think we're going to move into legislation. I guess we technically have one emergency read, so I'll ask for a motion to waive reading that in full, and that's Ordinance 2023-26. Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so I think we're gonna move into that piece of legislation, and Judy, if you could read that in by title only?
Indeed, this is Ordinance 23-26, a second quarter supplemental appropriations and declaring an emergency for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, Amy Kemper's ready to go, I think.
Josue had a memo on the second quarter supplemental. Hopefully you had a minute to read it. It looks long, it's just not, it's not as complicated as you think. We had a couple grants we received, so we need to approve a supplemental budget in order to be able to spend that money we increased the utility roundup spending for the year because we are using more than last year, and that's a good thing, to distribute it to people who need assistance with their utility bills. We're increasing the mayor's distribution of fines. We just under budgeted for this year. It's usually about 7,000. We only put 2,000 in. So I'm bumping that back up. That's the money coming in and the money going out. So it's just a pass through. Safety Village, they got the PD got funds for Safety Village they want to spend in July. Mediation got a grant for $5,000 that they would like to spend in June and July and August, which just increases the budget. Then there's just a few things. We're reallocating some salaries. We're taking some salaries out of electric and moving it to sewer. We had never had salaries in sewer before for administrative salaries. So we're just, it's $11,000 for the rest of this year. Sorry, stormwater.
Solid waste.
Solid waste. Solid waste, sorry. It's one of those things. Solid waste. Yeah, we don't have any salaries in solid waste because it's all contracted, right? So we're moving some of that administrative overhead to that because we have additional funds that are starting to build up. So we're trying to alleviate some of the disproportionate allocation to the other enterprise funds. The big one is the American Rescue Act wages, $392,000 in COVID funds, what we still have on our books for 2023. We worked with our auditors, and the best way to utilize that fund is to pay PD salaries for that exact amount, $392,970.82. So once we hit that amount in PD, we'll move those funds down to the American Rescue Act funds, and that will clear that fund out. So it relieves the general fund budget of a bit of a salary for 2023, and that's a one-time deal. So that's the biggest one. We have a matching fund for water capital fund for the water meter grant, and that is $146,000. We're pulling that from both the sewer and the water funds. With Johnny's help, we figured out the best way to do that. And there's just a few little cleanups. We have some really funky little funds that have 8 and 10 cents in them. I'm trying to close them out. I got a budget for it in order to do that, so that's what we're doing. Any other questions? Just electrical operating supplies. There's a transformer for a address on 68 that we received $17,000 in funds for, that we have to increase our budget so that we can go ahead and expend those funds to do that work for them. Any other questions?
So I have a comment and a question. So first of all, and I'm not sure it's come up since you've been here, Amy, but we've had people ask in the past, like, what are supplementals? Why do they do them? And I really appreciated the detail that you put into this supplemental, and highlighting the fact that a lot of times supplementals really highlight great things for the village. The fact that we are getting grants and then we need to allocate that so that we can spend those grants and put them in the right places. So, so I think it can be confusing to look at that from the outside, but I just wanted to highlight that in this case, we're not talking about, that we're, adding all this to the budget, but rather making sure that we can spend monies that we're getting through grant funding and other allocations. So my one question was, I'm a little bit confused about, I understand the administrative side of adding for solid waste. I guess I'm not as clear as to why that would relate to the other utility funds.
Because the administrative staff, the utilities billing staff, the 3 downstairs, they work on all bills.
Okay.
One bill covers all utilities, right? And we'd never allocated any of their time to solid waste. And I think they actually spend more time on solid waste questions because we are customer service for Rumpke. Hey, they didn't pick up at X address, or what do I do with my leaf bags and that kind of stuff. So we need to take some of the cost off the other enterprise funds in order to use that solid waste administrative overhead appropriately.
So the entire 11,000 is really for the administrative piece of
Just the
solid
staff
waste?
downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments?
I would just add to that, Brian, that part of our rate structure for solid waste includes the administrative expense for us managing the bill and doing the collection. So we negotiate a rate with Rumpke, and then we add our administrative fee to that Rumpke rate that we charge the customers. So the money that it's coming from the designated portion of administrative expense for trash services.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay. So I guess Judy, I'm going to open the public hearing because this is an emergency reading. So do we have any citizen comments on the supplemental? All right, if not, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, if you could call the roll.
All right, DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Tausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So next up is first reading of ordinance 2023-29. Judy, we can do that by title only.
All right, this is adding chapter 445 to the codified ordinances of Yellow Springs for the regulation of low-speed micromobility devices.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay. So I think everyone remembers this was a reflection of realizing some assumptions we had about our local ordinances around micromobility devices. We're not actually part of the ordinance, and so we're trying to clean that up. And Josue, I'll let you or whoever take it over from there.
Yeah, I think you covered it. This is primarily a housekeeping item. We have a new business enterprise that's coming to town, and it raised the question, well, how do we treat this in comparison to other mobility devices and the downtown and the bike path? So this helps address those issues that were raised by council at the last council meeting. So this is your first reading, so we welcome feedback if there's anything that you feel that needs to be addressed that isn't being addressed, or if you have any questions on it.
Okay, so I have a few thoughts, and I'll again kind of clarify. I think our common practice has been we're not expecting that folks are going to ride bikes, skateboards, scooters, whatever, on our downtown streets. And I think the central business district is pretty well articulated in the ordinance. But at the same time, recognizing that on the Little Miami Scenic Trail and our bike paths and ultimately our protected bike lanes that we might, put in some areas, that these devices are appropriate, especially if they're controlled speed-wise. And so there is state law that indicates that an e-bike, an e-scooter, as long as it's maxed out at 20 miles an hour, is appropriate for trails unless a local entity says otherwise. So, council members, any questions or comments?
Yes,
Marianne?
would you go over what the rules are for downtown?
Yes. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this is literally lifted from the bicycle section. Same streets, same everything. It simply says, those places that you don't allow bicycles to be ridden on the sidewalks, same thing for these low-speed micromobility devices.
And the other piece is it does cover you can't just throw them around wherever you want.
Yes,
So,
I read that, but I thought you just said, Brian, that you couldn't ride them on the streets downtown.
no. So that's, so I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, I meant the sidewalks. So, right, these are, like bicycles, considered to be vehicles that can be on the streets.
Right.
So one concern I do have is I'm not sure we're covering skateboards and, not that anybody rollerblades or skates anymore, but, it's a possibility. So.
That's the beauty of the language. It does cover.
Okay, because I know like the definition says micro mobility device has handlebars. So I just want to, so I don't know if,
Wow.
Well, it's the language, is the definition is both for.
do you want to come up, Amy?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to, because we had thought that, we have signage downtown that says skateboards and skates cannot be on the sidewalks. I'm not sure that we have covered that. So I
Right,
don't
so
know.
there's a lot more regulations in the Ohio Revised Code in chapter 4511, I think .514, it's cited in the ordinance, about these micromobility devices. And we lifted the language of the definition of the device from that and said that all of those regulations are applicable in this ordinance unless, specifically, something is specifically different. So if we want to make this apply to skateboards, I agree with you, it doesn't, because there's not a lot of skateboards that have handlebars, then we would need to tweak the ordinance. I would suggest using a different definition and adding them in separately, not trying to, include it as one definition, which would then just kick this to another first reading next time.
Or if we want to pass this now,
Pass this now and
we could
enact
add it later, right?
446, right?
I think you could.
We could put it in the same one,
Yeah.
yeah, but we'd have to change a definite, it would be a change significant enough to make it come back on first reading.
That is correct. But you could probably say something like low-speed micromobility devices and any wheeled devices
Right.
without handlebars that still go kind of slow and stuff like that.
Right.
We could wedge it in and
We could. I think what Brian's asking is if you wanted to pass it tonight and then we bring back something else, we can put something.
Yeah, my
else in that
opinion is
section.
I don't want to wait because, we're in the height of the summer and everything. But I just wanted to, elevate the fact that it doesn't seem like we're covering skateboards and rollerbladers right now.
so if your preference is that this is rewritten to include skateboards, roller skates, et cetera, that can be done. It can be done before the 20th. And you could read it as an emergency, which I might recommend anyway, because this wouldn't, even if you passed it like it is, it will not go into effect until July 20th. You're halfway through the summer. So, and that would put you really at the same place almost. But
Okay.
scooting it up as an
Well, that's true.
emergency.
So we could amend this one, bring it back as an emergency.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. Any other thoughts? Okay, so I think again, I think we're just trying to maintain what we thought was status quo. And then also recognize that, scooters are an issue as well. Jessica?
Jessica Thomas, Yellow Springs News. So I did read the ordinance, and there were there was kind of designations for people under 18 and 18 and up. And I was just wondering, if you could explain, why there may not have been like, even in the original ordinance, a third category of kids like 0 to 12 who we may not actually want on the street on any wheeled devices, even if they are in the downtown area. So if you could just talk about like how that's enforced. I know like my kid has a push behind bike that she likes to ride because she wants to do more than be pushed in a stroller. So what does that look like for those types of scenarios?
Amy, do you want that one? This one basically just follows state law.
Actually, I think the penalty section is unique to Yellow Springs. The penalty section is the same as the penalty section that's included in the bicycle ordinance, which says that if someone violates the ordinance and they're under the age of 18, the first time they do it, it's, you know, a warning. And I believe it says that they'll reach out to the guardians of the child, right? Judy didn't bring it up with me. And then if it happens again, it's a citation. So it mimics what's in the bicycle penalty. And then for the rest of the citations, it just kicks us back to our typical penalty in 40.
And that one seemed to make sense for this one, I thought, because you can't operate one of the micromobility devices unless you're 16 and over. But you're right, that if we include skateboards and skates and such like, then we'll have to look at that as well. Yeah.
I mean, it won't change. I think the result is the same. Anyone under 18, there'll be if we use the same penalty section, it'll be a warning on the first violation and then a citation on a second.
I think it also said something about the option to seize the device.
Impound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Jessica, I guess please share like more fully with Josue any concerns. I mean, my understanding is that like we're trying to make it clear that we get it, that kids are gonna, you know, do stuff downtown, and you know, we just kind of want to give them a warning. But yeah, help us flag anything that might be an unintended consequence. So, okay.
And I totally understand that like our officers use discretion, but it's also.
Yep.
Criminalize little kids, but not running.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the intention. So I think we'll make sure to look at that.
And those haven't been issues so far.
Right. Yeah, I think the bottom line is we would like to dissuade because, you know, we have busy, narrow sidewalks, some of that activity that could endanger people. So, okay. All right. So it sounds like we're going to bring this back. Any other comments, questions?
What about those like unicycle things?
Still a wheel?
That's a bicycle.
It counts?
Yes, it's got handlebars. So.
No.
Oh, they don't?
Once we cover the other wheels.
Okay, all right.
Make sure unicycles are included. Yeah, thank you.
That's going to be a new chapter.
Yeah, but I guess the bottom line is if we're not going to cover skateboards and roller skates, then we need to take the signage down. So, you know, one way or another. But I think it's all in the same vein. Okay. Then I think we're going to be looking at what's our next first read of Ordinance 2023-30, which we can do by title only.
All right, this is enacting new section 238.06, sale and reinvestment of renewable energy credits of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay. Josue?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Since last council meeting, Mary Ann, Kevin, Johnny Burns, Amy Kemper, myself had a meeting to follow up with the questions that were asked at council meeting. There were 3 items that were requested to be addressed as the updated ordinance. And those are adding a definition for the electric enterprise, setting standards for the purchase of green e-RECs, and what would happen with the distribution of net proceeds. All those 3 items have been addressed in the updated ordinance. In short, there is now a definition of the electric enterprise. regarding standards for purchase of green e-recs. The ordinance sets standards for purchase of green e-certificates that match attributes of recs being sold, particularly in two items: the source of the rec and the vintage, which is the year of the rec. So if we're selling solar recs, then we'll try to buy solar recs of that same year that are being sold. They won't be in the same market, but they'll match the attributes of the recs that are being sold. And finally, on the distribution of net proceeds, this is where the meat of the ordinance is that we would make an 85-15 split in reinvestment of net proceeds. 85% will be reinvested in infrastructure improvements for the electric enterprise, with the remaining 15% will fund municipal projects specifically designed to lower greenhouse gas emissions and address equity issues for customers. The ordinance goes into greater detail, itemizing what those greenhouse gas reduction projects would be. So, okay, those are the changes.
All right, any questions?
I think that, thank you to Josue and Johnny and Kevin, who's not here, but I think that good work has gone into this policy, and I think we've looked at sort of pros and cons of the policy, and also how to make it as serve the village and work against climate change as good as we can, and put in some equity issues. So I feel good about it.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Gab? Yeah, I appreciate the work that's been done. And I'm excited about the solar projects that can come out of this and other things as well. So let's go ahead, and I know it's a first reading, but let's go ahead and take a vote to see where people are at. Judy?
All right, McQueen.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay. So we are going to move into Resolution 2023-43. And, Judy, I like when you read these in, if you don't mind. So,
I do not mind.
And you did a great job on this, so thank you.
This is celebrating the value, worth, and right to a life free from malicious judgment and retribution for every human. Whereas in just the first few months of 2023, there have been more anti-LGBTQ plus bills introduced than in all of 2012 through 2015, with many such actions directed at LGBTQ plus youth and those who support and or educate them. And whereas LGBTQ plus people exist in all cultures, all classes, all families, all religions, and all ethnicities, and are actively welcomed in Yellow Springs as codified in our village values. And whereas any effort to silence or discredit any member of the LGBTQ plus community must be recognized as a tactic of disempowerment and should not be tolerated. And whereas when those of us empowered to believe in the worth of our lives use our voices to challenge the discrimination and diminishment of all those disempowered, we lift up all LGBTQ plus people and strengthen our entire community. And whereas the concept of pride is rooted in the history of our society, publicly, personally, and legislatively shaming people for who we are and who we love is unacceptable, and the expression of pride is essential to solidifying belief in LGBTQ plus people's worth as community and as individuals. And whereas we wish to recognize that LGBTQ plus persons are ubiquitous, and we raise ourselves by raising all disempowered, underrepresented, and oppressed people. And whereas we encourage all people to condemn the silencing of LGBTQ plus history and to challenge the ignorance that drives oppression of our transgender and non-binary people. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council for the Village of Yellow Springs that Section 1 Village Council takes pride in the diversity of our community and commits to ensuring the equal treatment and protection of all villagers and visitors, regardless of race, age, sexual orientation, gender expression or identity, ethnicity, economic status, mental or physical ability, and or religious affiliation. Section 2, in the words of Harvey Milk, it takes no compromise to give people their rights. It takes no money to respect the individual. It takes no survey to remove repressions. Village Council encourages the celebration of June 24th as YS Pride Day to recognize progress made in the ongoing fight for justice, equality, and inclusion, and the urgent need for continued active support for the LGBTQ plus community. Join the love riot.
All right, thank you, Judy. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And, traditionally, we read this resolution at the YS Pride celebration after the parade. Any council member that's able to be there is always welcome to join in that celebration and reading. So, all right. Thank you. Okay. Resolution 2023-44, we can do by title only.
All right, this is approving donations to Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce for payment of village services undertaken in support of the spring and fall 2023 street fair events.
All right, can I get a motion?
Move.
Second.
Okay. So we've had a great conversation about the benefits, about how we are working together in concert as we always have. Since Mark is here, if you have any quick comments you want to make, you're welcome to.
Very quick.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the support of council as we have in the past. Bringing back street fair last year was not an unherculean task. We learned a lot of lessons. I do want to point out that the staff, as always, has been amazing in working with us, Josue and Johnny, Chief Page, and doing some amazing work to keep this an enjoyable event and keep it a safe event. And we're looking forward to it this Saturday.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate it. And I know when I was dropping off those bike maps, I saw a lot of production happening. So yeah, I just want to say I'm really appreciative of the things that we're thinking about in terms of being more environmentally sustainable, and I'm excited about the event coming up. So thank you.
Those tote bags I gave you at the last meeting.
Yes.
You guys, we can spend the entire weekend printing 1,000.
Oh, nice. All right.
Plastic out of the equation.
Well, great. And mine's going to be full this Saturday. So, all right. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. All right, next up, we've got Resolution 2023-45, which we can do by title only.
All right, this is approving a change order for Fillmore Construction LLC for completion of the sewer rerouting project on Dayton Street.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Josue?
Thank you, Brian. We're coming near an end to the stormwater project. It's been a long time coming. We had to do a lot of additional work to get the work done right. We discovered quite a few things that should have been done long time ago in the first installation of the stormwater project, but we're not done. So, such as the depth of which the stormwater system should have gone in. So, as a result, that required a lot of work that Johnny can get into as much detail as you're interested in. But in short, there were additional work that needed to be done that needs to be paid for and approved, and that is the resolution before you. That those change orders are totaling $154,288.42.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions or comments? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. So we are now into the point in our agenda. Oh,
One long resolution.
oh, sorry. Yes. Yes, thank you. 2023-46. Yes.
Oh, here you go.
All right.
Okay, this is authorizing the village manager to enter into any necessary memoranda of understanding with law enforcement agencies in order to acquire mutual aid.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay. Josue?
Yes, and Jamie, and Amy can join me if you feel you need to, Amy. In short, we are requesting the assistance of law enforcement agencies around us for staffing. We had initially planned on getting officers from the state trooper. They did not come through, so Paige reached out to surrounding jurisdictions, and we're having officers directly come from other police departments. Jamestown has committed 3, Cedarville has committed 2, and we have others coming. And this necessitates us getting authorization from council that we can enter into MOUs for mutual aid for these types of activities. So resolution before you is specifically for street fair events. So you're authorizing us to enter in agreements just for those two events.
Okay. Questions? Yeah.
Yeah. Will they be paid? And if so, how? And will the chamber cover that cost?
The chamber will cover the cost in terms of how they would get paid will be arrangements that we make between the agencies. So it might be a payment where we are transmitting the payment agency to agency, or we may have an arrangement like we have had with state troopers where they get paid the day of. But in either case, the cost will be incurred by the event organizers. So this is an additional expense for street fair organizers.
Okay.
Amy, did I miss anything?
All right. Anything else? Yeah.
So has this just never happened before? Like, why are we getting it in a memo at the table? Why, like, what's happened?
Yeah, in the past, we've put out calls for state troopers and Greene County sheriffs.
And we have an agreement with them, you're saying?
We have an agreement with Greene County, because Greene County is the lead law enforcement agency in the county.
Okay.
So this would allow us to work with other municipalities.
And is there something about the size of the event that requires the number of officers, like as in that we have to have X number of officers? It couldn't be other people that are not officers?
Yes, they are standards of coverage for large events, and we're trying to meet those standards for coverage.
The numbers, what's the number per 1,000 people?
One officer per 1,000. That's a standard practice, and
Right.
there are ways you can mitigate those requirements.
Sure.
Yeah, there is another interesting aspect of our relationship with Greene County, but we don't have to go into that right now. Okay. Anything else? All right, then I think we are out of legislation. We're moving into.
We need to call a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So citizen concerns. This is the point on the agenda where we accept any comments about items that are not on the agenda up to 3 minutes. And also in line with Judy reminding us, we will not necessarily respond at this point. It may end up being a future agenda item, but if it is something that we can quickly address, we will do so. So, yes.
I remembered the announcement that I wanted to make.
Oh, okay, there you
Can I
go.
do that?
Yeah, that sounds like make it a citizen
So it
concern.
involves the village mediation program. So the village mediation program has gotten some grant money from the Community Foundation to do 2 conflict resolution workshops and a full 20-hour mediator training. So the first conflict resolution workshop happened on Saturday for 2 hours. Janet Mueller, who is a Yellow Springs resident, also a member of the mediation program here and in Dayton, led the workshop. It was great. She is a great presenter. And we had 18 people attend, plus 5 people from the mediation program. The second conflict resolution workshop will be in the fall. I think the date hasn't been set and the topic. But the mediator training is going to cover 2 Saturdays. The first Saturday is September 30th, and then the following Saturday, and then 2 Thursday evenings for a total of 20 hours. The Dayton mediation program will be doing the training. Probably Janet will be one of the trainers, but she did such a great job. And I think people got so much out of that training. So I'm just encouraging people to go to either the conflict resolution training, we need more mediators, and people can call the mediation number, which is 937-318-1542, or they can email Diane Diller, who's the coordinator, at mediation@yso.com.
Great. And I think one of the ways that we promoted these activities in the past is creating a slide that goes on our community access station. I also wonder who does our Facebook stuff now.
Well, it's being shared duties, myself, Erica Thomas. Those are primary
Okay.
leads. And
So I would say,
Have Diane contact Erica and
Yeah.
maybe the channel?
yes, Ben will be responsible for getting materials out onto Channel 5
Okay.
and our YouTube channel.
right, and I would think that for Erica or Josue, if the details of the opportunity were just laid out in an email, they could make a Facebook post pretty easily.
Yes, that would be great. As much content as we can get prepped to make it easier for us to.
We might not have all the pretty graphics, but yes.
No, I'm talented in many things. That's not one of them.
Okay, all right. So Ed Amorine, I know you're here to make a comment.
Yeah, I made 6 cups. I don't know if you want to distribute it or not.
I will indeed.
Thank you, council members. I'm here to simply read a letter. And I want to emphasize that this letter, though it's from me as a board member of the Yellow Springs Community Children's Center, that the entire board hasn't voted on this letter. It's not on letterhead. It's a draft, but given your schedule, I decided to read it tonight just to bring this to your attention. This is simply to alert Village Council to potential difficulties for the Yellow Springs Community Children's Center created by the impending sale of the adjacent property by Antioch College. As you may know, employees, parents, and the general public have all enjoyed free parking in the lot at the corner of Limestone and Corey Street for many years. With the decision by the college to sell the parcel, the possibility looms that employees and parents with small children in tow will have a significant distance to walk along arterial streets, some without sidewalks, to get to and from the Yellow Springs Community Children's Center. This concerns members of the board. Board members recognize that Antioch College's right to dispose of its surplus property as it sees fit, and we are grateful for the many years of free parking that the college has permitted. And we'd further like to acknowledge and thank the college and its president, Jane Fernandez, for notifying this board in advance of its intent to sell the parcel and for the opportunity of first refusal on the purchase. Also, we do not intend to imply that we believe the village bears any obligation to provide free parking for the Children's Center or anyone else. That's not categorically what we're about here. We would simply like to alert council to a potential problem. Even if the college, the Children's Center, the village, or any other entity could easily afford a solution, available sites are scarce and getting more so. As planning is undertaken for the future use of this vacant parcel, we hope that the effort is collaborative and that the Children's Center is invited to participate. We will participate whether invited or not, but we hope that that we really are a formal and important acknowledged stakeholder in the future of that parcel. We also hope that council embarks on both short and long-term planning processes that serve the parking needs of all its constituents fairly and without deepening our reliance on the automobile. We don't want that either. Tall orders indeed, but we are confident that such collaboration will achieve the best results for all. I think, as I recall my years working for the village, parking came up again and again and again. and no comprehensive, long-range, future-looking solution ever emerged. And it may not emerge this time. We may find a suitable short-term or parcel-by-parcel solution yet once again. I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm not here to ask for discussion, although I'm willing to answer questions. I do want to say one other thing, though, and that is that parcel is far more important than the Children's Center than just as parking for half a dozen underpaid childcare professionals. It's also access to the parcel that we own. There is a gate that involves through access from the parcel in question to our property. And frankly, it's going to take some fairly serious head scratching for us to solve any problems that may result from the disappearance of that parking adjacent to our property. So I just want to alert you that it's coming. I'm afraid you don't just get to say, well, we can't do anything about it and have it go away. That's not going to happen. And we'll see what happens when we find out who bought it. We've heard it's been purchased, but we don't know by whom and what their plans for its future are. It's a potentially very valuable site in the village. And what its highest and best uses are is going to be debated possibly for the next year. So here we go. I just want you to be alerted that the Children's Center is here and present and intends to be present for those discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I think you already know that we, the village, did try to be involved in that. And we, like you, hope it's going to be collaborative. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay, any other citizen concerns? Okay. If not, then we've got a special report from our housing committee.
All right, thank you, Brian. As you know, the Housing Advisory Board, Housing Committee has reconvened, and there are a lot of things that we need to address as we re-engage the group to come up with an updated concept plan and a proposal to council to support. So I've included in my memo what are key items that we need to work through, and we need council's guidance on working our way through some of those issues, and that is what is the balance of rental and for sale or ownership units, and the balance of the specific income ranges as identified in the Bowen housing study and demand for housing that we want to focus on for a concept development on Glass Farm. So I've included a memo that reiterates summarizes the key points from the Bowen study, particularly around the number of units needed for rental and for sale units, and then a breakdown based on the demand of units by income groups. So that I did my best to summarize what was an extensive study into a couple paragraphs.
Okay.
Gavin, did I miss anything?
Well, I mean, I guess, so, we have a committee that has met 3 times and has been discussing specifically, I think started out with the piece around Glass Farm development, but then has sort of, broadened out a little bit to try to figure out associated, to talk about associated issues and, broader housing questions. At the last committee, there was, for example, the idea of inclusionary zoning was brought up. There was other concepts that we're, talking through in the space. And I think, I'm trying to get the piece pulled up here, but I think there's a couple of questions that we wanted to, in particular, flag for the council to try to get some input on, because we want to try to make sure that we, move as efficiently as possible without going down some road and then there being, notable difference of opinion from council about how to approach things.
And while you're pulling that up, Gavin, I'll like to provide an update that we have engaged Aaron Sorrell for as a partner to update the concept plan for Glass Farm. If you recall, Aaron Sorrell did our comprehensive land use plan. Aaron was also development director for Dayton City, so very familiar with the space, with the developers, with what's possible, and understands our comprehensive well. So we thought he would be a great member or a partner to update the concept plan.
Yeah. So those questions are on page 88 of the packet, but it's the prioritizing rental units versus for sale, and then the income ranges. Assuming those are the ones in the memo anyway.
Well, I have some comments. So I think the Bowen study, they suggested 500 units, 300 rental, 200 homeownership. And I think we can assume that the Kinney property, what is the name of the developer?
DDC Development.
DDC is going to develop approximately 90, or I'm going to round it up to 100.
87, but we can round to 90.
Almost. So I think of those 200 home ownership units, we could cut that in half between the DDC and other houses that get built. So I would suggest that on the Glass Farm, or maybe on village-owned properties, that we do a split of 1/4 home ownership, 3/4 rental. And then in terms particularly of the rental, I think we should focus on the low and moderate income housing needs, and that's broken down in this data, which, and probably some of the housing should also be for moderate income. Both of those categories, moderate income housing and lower moderate income rental, mean subsidies. Really hard to do it without that. And given that this is such a critical value for the village, I think that's what we should primarily focus on. Housing for low and moderate people that presumably is going to need subsidies. So I also suggest that the housing group start meeting both with Home Inc. and with the Development Corporation. Home Inc. because they're our affordable housing developer and have that information, and the Development Corp because I think that's an interest that they have, it's my understanding. And also they have the potential maybe for bringing some money to the table.
Can I make a suggestion? Because that was a lot that needs to go back to the Housing Committee, that maybe that, literally, that delineation of all of the things that you have suggested come back to council for council to say yes to this, yes, 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 no to that, because whatever it gets said, because as Gavin's saying, we don't want to run into a block. And that was a lot of suggestions. I mean, I sort of feel like if that comes back and council says yes to all of those things, then that goes to Housing Committee. I thought that was kind of what Gavin was asking for, is council, what all do you want?
Can I chime in a little bit? So I recall at the housing work session that we had, Denise Swinger saying apartments, 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 and as council agreeing, except for one of us, for affordable housing for low to moderate income people. That's what we discussed at that meeting, and I thought that that's what we were supposed to be prioritizing. So I understand that for revenue building purposes, we are going to need some, fair market rate housing. But am I mistaken? Does anybody? I mean, I feel like I remember Denise specifically saying apartments, and we were going to work toward affordability and affordable rentals.
So I think that's how I remember it too, and that's in keeping with what the committee has discussed. The question is how much, like how many apartments, and at what income levels, and then to what degree is subsidy required, and to what degree would a component of that subsidy be essentially some of the land being available for development at market rate. So this is why we wanted to bring it up, to sort of talk it out a little bit, because simply put, I don't think that, it doesn't feel like it's possible that it's going to be, the entire parcel is going to be developed as affordable housing.
Sure.
Obviously get into definitions of what that means and everything, but I think there's a concern that the idea of that, of there being the entire development being affordable seems unlikely. And on the flip side, no one is expecting it to be 100% market rate. So what we're trying to get feedback on is like, hey, how do, and I tried to relay, I think that was relayed, that like this is where council wants as much affordable housing as possible. And then we're trying to figure out the balance, but I felt like it was relevant for us to talk about it because I didn't want, so for example, there's been some discussion in the committee purely with hypotheticals that like something kind of like the Ober deal from like a sort of 1 acre, 2 acres for affordable, a lot more for market. I was under the impression from our conversations that that kind of split would be disappointing and maybe to the point of being unacceptable for council based on the work session that we had. So we're here to sort of say, hey, we're trying to figure out a balance, but to I think your point around in the past meetings and to a certain extent here, we're trying to figure out how to start making the math work, and wanted to kind of let you all know these are some of the kinds of decisions that they aren't being made now, but we're starting to try to figure out how to balance them. Does that answer your question? It's like, yes, you heard it right.
It does answer my question, but what personally, I don't want to get away from what our vision was initially. I understand that subsidies have to be an issue. And this is something that so many municipalities are struggling with now, especially someone like ours, and we don't qualify for a lot of subsidies. There are different models of mixed income. That's a thing. Mixed income apartments, or you pay on a sliding scale. That's something that I know that people think it's difficult to get into and hard to manage, but if we're going to be about the business of building affordability, then we have to figure out how we can do that.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, I think that's where the committee's, I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
Yeah, okay.
I think the committee's trying to say, hey, how many apartments can we?
I kind of liked what Mary Ann threw out. I kind of liked her numbers.
I can write it down. I've made some comments in the notes, but I mean, you're not going to get a developer to come in and say, hey, I want to build affordable housing. So if we're going to have a significant housing that meets moderate and lower income people, we're going to do it. And the subsidy is what brings it up to cost effectiveness.
So really quickly, and this is just going to get it out there. There are certain developers who have been given money by the federal government to supply affordable housing specifically. And they happen to be African-American because of the disparities of government contracts with people who happen not to be African-American. So there's money that, I don't know, I could do a little bit of research, but I think that like saying there's no one who's going to want to do affordable housing here is kind of, the likelihood of it. So I don't want to throw that out.
So I do have a background in this. I haven't done it for a decade, I guess, but I still know that the money that is going into affordable housing from the Federal Home Loan Bank, from the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, from rural development, from the Federal Housing Agency, from all these, is a fraction of what the need is. So that the most lucrative is tax credit. And that's maybe something that we would want to try. But what Home Inc. has tried to get tax credits twice and failed because because Ohio Housing Finance Agency is putting their emphasis on Appalachia, and we aren't Appalachia. So yes, there's money for affordable housing, and it's really hard to get.
Yeah.
So that is the truth.
Okay.
Yeah, I also think, and it's good to talk about the funding piece, but I think we got to have the planning piece before we get there. I was reminded when I was at a workshop a week and a half ago that the USDA does interest-free loans.
Yep.
And so, I mean, there are a variety of things that, I don't know. I think if we've got a good plan, funding's going to follow. One thought I have, so I like everything I've heard, is whether it would be to our advantage to not just think about Glass Farm, but also think about the area near Green Met at the same time, because I would imagine that different opportunities are going to come up. And so I guess I'd like to think about, the opportunities in both locations, because we have control over those. And then as we understand what the opportunities are, we can take advantage of those. So, for example, we know that we have to, a sewer line. If an opportunity came up and we could do that, and then we could start getting, some affordable rentals there, that'd be cool, right?
Smaller scale.
Yes. So anyway, I would just encourage thinking about those two, not going crazy, but just those are two sites, and then, see what happens. So
I don't, that sounds like a good idea, but the idea that we make a plan and then we go after the money or whatever, I disagree with that. And that's what I said when I wrote the paper earlier, that I think the housing group should educate itself on what kind of subsidies there are and what kind of units are going to need subsidy, because you could create a great plan and then find out, oh, wow, we can't get subsidy for this. For example, maybe we would want to do 8 units of rental somewhere, and you find out later, well, it's very hard to get money for 8 units, but you can get money for 20, or vice versa. So I think that if we are going to make a commitment to affordable housing, and I'm talking about moderate and lower income, that you need to educate yourselves. We need to educate ourselves about subsidy issues. And we have our affordable housing organization that probably can help. St. Mary's Development Corp would be the other group that could help.
And I'd like to think that a plan would involve thinking about what's actually fundable. So I don't disagree.
And so just for whatever it's worth, we did talk about this, and the assumption was, and Josue, correct me if I say this, if I say this wrong, but that, or not the assumption, but that Aaron Sorrell has experience around putting together projects that would give us, so that those, I think we talked about in the committee that exact example. I think you've shared it before. We heard it, and we were talking about, hey, we don't want to have, we say we're going to have 8 units and then they need 20 or something. Our understanding is that Aaron would be able to provide a first pass of feedback and has relevant experience to that question. We didn't expect that what Aaron was going to do was going to solve that completely. And I'll just say, I'm totally open to talking to Home Inc. and, St. Mary's Development Corporation. We kicked around some other ideas of people to reach out to, but we can come back with this, but I know I could commit to having meetings with those folks to then bring that information back to the committee if that would be useful. It would be useful.
And I think reaching out to the Lisa Abel and the Development Corp too.
Okay. So anything else? I think great discussion.
So I guess I just want to make sure everybody's clear. We're not going to be able to build, I don't think, 100% low and moderate income housing. I think we're going to do our best to try to come up with a model that's got the most low and moderate income housing possible and I think the only other piece around this, like the balance around the home ownership and the rental, I think we were all clear we want to be heavy on apartments. So I guess like, is there anybody up here who feels like Marianne threw out 3/4 rental, 1/4 home ownership? Again, to a certain degree, this is going to be based on, I think, the degree to which the home ownership is subsidizing the deal. But when you hear those numbers, council, is there anybody who looks at that and goes, no, that's way off, I want something way different? We're not setting anything in stone. I'm just making sure we don't go too far on the road and people disagree.
I think that the only person that was entirely neutral on the matter isn't here.
I think you're talking about, I think Kevin, I think that was like a semantic, I think the language.
Really, so I mean, we
Yeah.
should probably.
Well, I can check in with Kevin too. I think ultimately, I think there was a language thing going on in that housing commission, like in this work session.
Okay, but yeah, whatever.
Okay.
If you want to reach out to him, that's fine.
I'll call Kevin.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is 3/4, 1/4 sounds pretty good. And so then if for some reason we're getting that that's a problem, then we would circle back. I just know everybody expressed a lot of interest in this issue, so I'm trying to make sure that there's input and that you know what we're doing. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think it sounds good. Okay. So I think we're moving into the manager's report.
Great, thank you. All right, I've included my manager's report. We've had a lot of exciting activities happening. We've got those two projects, particularly water projects, that are being funded, the meter replacement program, and we've got almost $9,000 for an H2O equipment grant. This is to improve leak detection, which coincided with the week that we've also conducted our annual leak analysis. We rehired the company from last year that did our leak detection program in the village, and we identified significant water losses. They were out again over the last 2 weeks, and we found more leaks, and we have more leaks to repair. So these two things happening during the same period. Yes?
Two questions. Were those leaks on our side or on the property owner's side? Both.
Johnny, do you know? I don't think we listed. I know that they're all on our side. So it's not hitting the customer's utility accounts.
And the other question, I noticed that in May, last month, we produced 9 million gallons, but the wastewater was over 12, but we didn't have that much rain. So is there some reason for?
So our wastewater tracks with amount of rain that we get. So in the previous month, we had 23.2 million gallons processed through wastewater, and we had 3.7 inches of rain. In May, we did almost half that, but we also almost had half amount of rain come through. We had 1.93 inches of rain. So it is tracking. It's tracking with the rain. Our water production did go up. We went from 8.5 million to 9.9 million gallons in water. So while our water production went up by 1.4 million, our wastewater treatment was almost half of what we processed in April.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't looking at March and April.
So those numbers are tracking for the most part. Any other questions? On the water side of things, for months now, we've been talking about our galvanized water line replacement project, that it's starting, and we've been at the starting line for many months now, and it's nothing to do on our side. We have some challenges with the contractor, J&T Excavating, that is going out of business. So we're trying to untangle that issue and ensure that we are made whole and we're able to deliver the project. So we're working with our solicitor to find a resolution to that. So we apologize for all these announcements we put out that, hey, this project is starting, and we were all on the same page that we're starting, and then suddenly our contractor can't come through with that project. So there's there's that. So any questions on the rest of my materials? I included, Marianne and I spoke earlier today about the compost program, and one of the things I said in there that that might seem unfeasible. I'm particularly talking about a proposal that was submitted to TLT. We're still working through the concepts. We're not prepared to come to council with a presentation, but want to provide clarity to that is still being worked on before it comes back to council. Brian, with your question of planting bamboo in the village, Mark is no longer here. Mark's the one who had significant experience removing bamboo because we asked him to remove bamboo that expanded beyond his property line. Bamboo spreads, and there's folks that are saying that there's a non-invasive species of bamboo. I'm sure there probably is a non-invasive plant of bamboo, but in the village, it's spreading out of control, and I would advise against planting bamboo.
There's such thing, so bamboo laterally underground, it'll grow, become pot bound in a bucket, grow up the side of the bucket, out of the bucket, under the sidewalk for sometimes 15 or 20 feet, under paved areas, sometimes 30 feet, and then find a place to pop. It'll grow underground for hundreds of feet if it needs to.
Right. And we've seen the problems over in, Fair Acres with that like crazy, like patch of bamboo. So I guess, Mike, what's that? It doesn't care. Yeah, it doesn't.
Doesn't care.
All right. So I guess my question is, have we covered bamboo in our ordinances at all?
We did, right? Because we were, it's in there. It's in there because we had to take action on several bamboo, and all
right, well,
we
good.
had to have it in order.
So I think that was my main thing is I had hoped it had been contemplated.
Yeah.
And so if it has,
Now I saw that there was a very, I don't know how colorful the conversation, but this was a Facebook conversation I saw, and it's that what
well, that's what reminded me, but
okay. All right.
yeah. Okay, well, good. Well, I mean, that was kind of my first thing is I hope we've contemplated it, and then, it's beautiful, but it's not good for infrastructure, and it's not good for sight lines or anything else.
Right, as are other invasive plants. I was surprised how much attachment there is in our community for honeysuckle. And there's probably a non-invasive version of honeysuckle as well. But we have a lot of invasive plants in our community that we need to address. I think with Marianne, previous conversation, we talked about doing an educational campaign around the invasive plants, putting a picture out in either newspaper or other medium and say, hey, this is an invasive plant. Take care of it if it's on your property.
Yeah, the Habitat team wants to do more work in that regard. I'm actually looking at the weed ordinance because there are two lists. There's a list of things that you have to remove, and then there's a list of things that you can't plant. I'm just trying to see if it's.
Yes, we'll move. We'll follow up. We'll follow up because we're talking about it, Brian.
Right.
One more thing I'll add to my manager's report. You'll be getting a memo from me after this meeting or a couple next day or so about us exploring at cost efficiency and improving our dispatch center and looking at opportunities going from a secondary to a primary to qualify for funding and being able to have access to 911 fees. It requires several partnerships, so I'll be sending that memo out to you. Brian has been involved in some of the preliminary conversations, but we'll want to inform all of council what's happening in that regard.
Yep. I just have a couple other quick things.
Okay.
I think that maybe at the next meeting, we should just let folks know via your manager's report about the procedure for block parties.
Okay.
And I will say I talked to Erica the other day, and I think maybe this is the time to move away from the sponsorship for paper goods of block parties, because I think they will happen anyway. But that's a policy decision we'll have to make. Related to composting, and I mentioned this to Marianne, I really think we should talk to Five Rivers, and their guy is Tim, because they have some kind of I mean, it's not a digester, but they have some kind of machine that they've got at 2 parks. And I was amazed when I went to the pancake breakfast and they had volunteers making sure your stuff went into the right can. And then when I asked, where does the composting go? They've got a mechanism, so they're taking care of it themselves. I thought that was really cool. And then the last thing, I was just curious, what are the flyovers? I saw that referenced for DDC and for the electric utility. I just didn't understand, what are we doing with flyovers?
The flyovers, so for several years now, I don't know how long it's been going, but during the 4 years that I've been here, Dayton Development Corporation organizes flyovers to Washington, D.C.
No. These were drones or something, so.
Oh.
Those are fly-ins.
Fly-ins.
The electric department we have a drone operator, and he's flying over all of our properties to assess the assets that we have to show before, after, during. That is what we're doing. We're doing it for the CBE so we can help with the development corporation to be able to put that out there, just to make before, after, during pictures is what we're doing.
Okay.
So we notify different people. We've got a hold of Cresco so we don't get police called on us for flying drone over in their area. One thing that we need to note for Dayton Street for tomorrow, they ran into some issues today with the storm going to Springs Meadow for the DDC project. The backfill that was used for Dayton Street is 57s for the sewer. So when they're digging in for the new storm, it's undermining the road. It'll remain open, but there'll be a traffic light situation tomorrow night, temporary. It'll be down to 1 lane because the mixture for the flowable fill has to have time to set up to be able to put the road back. So just a note that there will be traffic lights and it'll be down to 1 lane.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Johnny.
I've got 2 more things. So
Yep.
One more thing. On the broadband side, we applied to the FCC Affordable Connectivity Pilot Program. This allows our residents to qualify for internet subsidies through a broadband program. We were approved, so now we're going to work on our procedures to create a process for our broadband customers to apply for the subsidies, a $30 subsidy. They're also eligible for other one-time subsidies for laptops.
Based on income?
It is based on income, and we will not be doing the income verification. It will all be handled through the FCC National Income Verification Platform. So we're also happy that we were approved for that so that we don't have to build any system to verify income. So it'll all be handled by them. So that's some great news. And our broadband program is moving along. We've had a fiber contractor all of the last 2 weeks, and we're getting fiber installed. We expect to have most of our drops, 142 fiber drops completed at the end of this week.
Great.
At the end of this week?
End of this week. The fiber drops to the home, and then we move into from the home, inside the home phase. So.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I can keep talking.
Any questions? Okay, then we're going to move into old business. And first of all is, this is a carryover from last time, approval of the first quarter financials. So I'll entertain a motion.
I move.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And the second item is as it's labeled here, work plan debrief. This is the memo in the packet, which is related to trying to prioritize our work for the second half of the year. And so I think everyone's aware that we've got a council retreat part 2 coming up. So really, this discussion item, unless Gavin and Josue have anything else, was to get any, I guess, input initially about other items that were not highlighted in that memo that folks want to be thinking about at the retreat. So those items are focusing on our stormwater, now that we have a stormwater utility, which we understand that that item largely involves our staff. But I would imagine we would have a council liaison, like maybe Carmen, who's expressed interest in that, helping to keep us tracking on that. And the reason why we're talking about work plans is we want to like tie this into what we did with the volunteer policy and actually have like, you know, steps and timelines and that sort of thing. Second item was locking down the rec policy, which we've essentially done, but there is a follow-up to that, which is what are we then going to do with those funds? And again, I would imagine, while again, a lot of that is probably staff-driven, there would be a council member, maybe Mary Ann, who would help, you know, think about how we invest those funds. Not even looking at the memo, so off the top of my head, municipal broadband, and I think that is huge, and then affordable housing. So the idea is that we want to really focus at our council retreat on actually putting together plans, action plans that involve who's responsible, who's tracking, and so forth. And then also mentioned in this memo are some secondary things that I think we, you know, also care about, with the caveat that I have said that if everyone feels that we should push paid parking and some of the other things to next year, I'm okay with that. But I think it's worth talking about how heavy of a lift that, and also the benefits of the red light cameras are, for example. But there are a few other items in there, like Vernay and whatnot, that I think we should make some commitments to. So mostly this is designed to prep us for that council retreat. But again, love to hear any initial thoughts about things that might be missing or whatnot.
So I would like to have an update and council input on the climate action sustainability limbo that we're in right now. And I plan on having a couple more meetings that would happen either before our work session or before the next council meeting. And I don't really care if it's at the work session at the council meeting, but the village has put $50,000 into this, so I think it's worth coming to council and having a council discussion about it.
Okay.
So as I said, I don't.
Yeah, and just for whatever it's worth, we did, I think it just, we talked about that, we just didn't, sorry, it just didn't get caught in the.
Well, composting is in there, or am I like wrong?
Yeah, but when we were talking about it, we were talking about it as though it was composting and CAS, like broadly. So I just, so you know, we did
Okay.
it, but it's good you flagged it, because it just didn't get written down right.
Okay. Any other thoughts? And so I guess maybe just the other implication of this is what we're hoping is we come to an agreement on prioritizing, and then that also dictates the amount of time we spend on certain items. So it doesn't mean that other items, and I think this is captured in the memo, can't come up, but that the idea of like trying to, you know, really focus our time on these priorities and see what we can get done.
And just to say, to just build out, I think the way we were talking about it was like, that this would kind of give us a screen, so that I think especially for folks that are part of agenda planning, that there's sort of a question of, is it on the goals? And then if it's not on the goals, then will it take a lot of time? And then, you know, can we, if it will, then can we punt it to the next year, or it's only on the agenda, discuss it if we actually have any energy to work on it, like that someone will actually do it. So that our goals aren't filled with priorities that we don't have council, staff, capacity for, and that we spend our time talking about things that are agreed upon in advance. Anyway, that was the discussion.
And this also ties into the original idea of like action planning did come from Josue's memo, to just kind of say like, can we sit down and do this? So, Carmen, any thoughts?
No, I'm down with the stormwater mitigation thing, because I know that a couple of community members, and there was a little bit of discussion about offsetting that stormwater fee for people who are being proactive with keeping the stormwater out of our system.
Okay.
Rain barrels, rain brothers, storm bioswales, decreasing the amount of paved surfaces and that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Marianne?
Yeah, after we worked with Josue on his goals, the review and goals, we said that I think every month, 2 council members were going to meet with him to talk about the goals. And
Yes.
has that been happening? And is that something we want to have in the work plan to just
Yes.
shore up to make sure that we're...
There are 2 things that we need to follow up on that I think, it's easy to get distracted because, these are not full-time positions for any council member. That is one. And similarly, Carmen and I need to meet with Judy to, like we said, quarterly. And then I think the other thing is we talked about that we were going to do that team building piece. So we are talking about that again. So those things will happen, or we need to schedule those. So yes.
I think that can come out of the work session /
Yep.
retreat.
Yep, exactly.
Retreat.
Okay, anything else? But obviously we've got, we've set aside 4 hours to talk about this, but we just wanted to kind of front end it and, get people thinking about what we're wanting to do, which actually means we're kind of close to wrapping things up because new business, the thing related to YSDC is simply, does anyone on council want to take that second spot?
So
yes.
I've spoken with Kevin about it, and I was going to reach out to Lisa Abel. I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
And I will. I didn't have time to commit the time that I needed to ask the questions that I needed to ask and give her any time to respond in a way. So we're going to see if she'll meet with me for an hour or so coming week.
So I think in my mind, it would be ideal if it was a council member. So
It's Gary, right? What's Gary?
Yeah, Gary, because we can't appoint someone.
Right.
And I think, and I do want to thank Gary Zaremski, who did a great job. And part of the reason that we also like Gary was the connection to Planning Commission, which you also have. So in my mind, and other council members may feel differently, I think a second council member would be ideal. But if it is not going to work out, then we need to think about who potentially we would appoint.
Okay.
So
Who's going off?
Gary asked to, he's become over obligated, so he's resigning. So yeah. Okay, so I don't think we have anything else to discuss. It sounds like we'll see where Carmen ends up being and then go from there. Okay. So then review of the retreat agenda. It sort of tracks with what we just talked about, but if there's anything that folks think is missing, that's why this is on here. But if otherwise it looks okay, then we'll, yeah.
I just want to say, Alex, we talked about it a little bit, so just in case it doesn't make sense to anybody else. So the idea is that we would talk about these 4 items, like talk them out a little bit. How might we move them? So whether it's CASP or stormwater or housing, that we would have a little bit more depth to give the kind of guidance, particularly to staff, but then also so that council sort of knows what conversations are coming. So it's like basically like come prepared to talk through your thing. I don't know if that didn't show up for me on this thing, so I want to make sure everybody knew that.
Yep. Okay. So any questions or comments on the agenda? Retreat agenda. Okay, if not, future agenda planning. Okay, so one thing that is on my mind is I want to make sure we wrap up the event fees process policies thing. So I think that that will come up during the retreat a bit, but then I do want to have some kind of plan for Carmen and I to meet with Johnny, Amy, Josue, maybe both Amy's actually. So anyway, so I just want, that's one of the things. I think everybody, wants to just understand like where we're going with that. So, and I also think that's going to affect our budgeting for next year. So, So
you're saying event fee follow-up for the 20th?
Maybe, but maybe it would be like after that.
I think it'll be June through July.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's crazy busy.
Yep.
I've got you and Carmen.
Oh, we've got it in August.
Yeah, special event committee. So we need to have a couple meetings prior to that, and it's scheduled for August 21st.
Okay.
And the reason it's in that timing, part of it is that we want to do it, have the finalized proposal ahead of the next budget session. So we want to have that ready no later than September, October. So whatever changes we're implementing, they are reflected in our budget. So a good example of that be tonight you approved $30,000 contribution to to Street Fair. Those will be something that will be budgeted for. So
okay,
August 21st.
That looks good.
Good time, right?
Gavin?
Well, you just mentioned budget planning. We talked about the finance committee meeting, just sort of getting ahead of like what the process is for the for budgeting. And I think it'd be worth like, it could also be in August or something. This isn't like a now, but just to flag, just having a 5-minute like check-in on what are people expecting out of the budget, so that everybody can give input on that besides just the finance committee.
Yeah, that sounds great. And we have the tax budget coming to you June 20th. And with that tax budget, it will have a schedule of what the rest of the year looks like for our budgeting process. So we'll outline the 3 workshops that we typically have with council around the budget, when we expect to have first reading and second reading on the budget. And so we'll have that schedule ready for council for the June 20th meeting. So council review and provide feedback on that schedule and what the expectations are. And I hope that then we can get feedback and thoughts from council of what other things you want to see through the budget process. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. As a side note, I'm going to be remote on the 20th. So I'm actually also looking for an agenda that doesn't have any major discussion items. So, because I will certainly do it on Zoom, but I'd rather do it here. So anything else?
So just to be clear, this thing that it sounds like the thing that was brought to us tonight about the parking thing, it sounds like there's nothing we can do. Like you made some mention like there was a thing that we had tried to participate.
So we have tried to purchase that parcel, and I don't remember if you guys were on council when we thought about it the first time. We engaged again. So
I don't need the update. It's not something we should talk about. Just being clear.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah. Ed brings up a couple of points in terms of long-range planning. We did consider some parking concepts around that area, and they were part of our comprehensive land use plan. And, we have talked about them. There are issues that come up, and sometimes they're too politically charged at the moment, like adding more parking. You heard it from businesses, you heard it from residents. We tried to do diagonal parking around Elm Street and Phillips. It turned into a big deal. So Ed is raising the issues about long-term planning around parking and how to implement that into our community design. So the issue there's an issue facing the Children's Center now, but that's part of the overall planning process for parking for the village. So.
Well, the price tag on the parcel is $145,000. That's a pretty heavy lift for taxpayer dollars for a parking lot.
Right, to keep public parking.
So, but anyway, we hope that there will be collaboration. I think that's okay, anything else? All right, well, actually, I said an hour and a half meeting. We're not too far off of that. So that's, I think, a good thing. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Nope.
The police, well, we should have a police report on the plan. Is that in there?
That's on there, yes. Yep. Okay.
Just, is there an amount of time that we have, like, that we shoot for meetings?
It's 2.5 hours is what, based on when Mary Ann and I started, our meetings were on average 4 hours. So, and actually, Megan Bachman has tracked this and provided us data at one point. So I guess when I became council president, I said, let's try to target 2.5 hours. And we can, continue to adjust. So, yeah.
So I'll say I'll be looking for, if we do 1.5 hour meetings and people are open to 2.5 hour meetings, then there are some of these subjects that we could actually have time to talk about.
Right. And we would have had a longer meeting if we
There were
didn't
two
take
big
some
chunks off.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So, motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. And happy Juneteenth.
Yay. Yay.